We have a brand new legal breaking update regarding New York's Attorney General Letitia James from the Hudson preview. What all does the legal breaking update detail? Let's find that out in today's video and explore that exact reason and try to find the answer of why she is attempting to sue Like I said, this article is by the Hudson Valley Preview. I said the Hudson Valley Preview, I meant the Hudson Valley Press Online. And the article is titled, James sues Trump administration over firings of federal workers. And the article reads, New York Attorney General Letitia James and a coalition of 19 other attorneys general last Thursday filed a lawsuit against the Trump administration for illegally firing thousands of probationary federal workers, including hundreds of them, my editorial edition, in New York. The administration is required to provide advance notice of mass layoffs to employees and states so that states can mobilize resources that are needed to process unemployment claims and care for unemployed workers. However, as Attorney General James and the coalition argue in their lawsuit, the administration has directed federal agencies to conduct immediate mass firings or terminations of probationary employees without following the law. The resulting unlawful layoffs have upended workers' lives, disrupted essential services, and forced states to scramble to provide resources for recently fired workers. That's wishful thinking, ladies and gentlemen, but there's still hope that these lawsuits will eventually lead to punishment, rightfully, legally, and constitutionally, for the Trump administration. Continuing with the article. Quote, whether it's providing health care to our veterans, keeping our community safe, or ensuring our children get a quality education, federal employees provide essential services every day, end quote, Attorney General James said, my editorial edition. Quote, the Trump administration's illegal mass firings of federal workers are a slap in the face to those who have spent their careers serving our country. Thousands of workers across New York and the nation are now struggling to pay rent, but put food on the table and care for their loved ones. Today, I am joining my fellow attorneys general in defending the rights of workers who serve our communities and stopping the chaos and confusion this unjust policy is causing. End quote. In New York, these illegal layoffs have impacted workers throughout the state. In the last week of February, 372 federal workers, had filed for unemployment in New York. More than 1,000 Department of Veterans Affairs VA employees nationwide were fired in February, including workers at VA medical centers in New York. Workers at the U.S. Center for Disease Control and Prevention (CDC) who were fired included 7 staffers assigned to New York City's Department of Health and Mental Hygiene. In Buffalo and Syracuse, more than 100 Internal Revenue Services employees have been fired, leaving New Yorkers without a critical resource for assistance with their tax returns at the height of tax season. The regional office of the National Labor Board Labor Relations Board, NLRB, in Buffalo also saw major staffing cuts jeopardizing the rights of workers across western New York. The probationary employees that the Trump administration has targeted illegally, my editorial edition, are workers who have either been newly hired or have recently been promoted or changed offices. They are generally subject to a probationary period of 1 or 2 years. In their lawsuit, Attorney General James and the coalition argue that the Trump administration has violated the law by implementing mass layoffs or reductions in force (RIF) without providing states and employees proper advance notices. Federal agencies are required by law to provide at least 60 days of prior written notice before they release any federal civil service employees under a RIF. These notices help states assemble job training programs, staff to process unemployment claims, and other resources to minimize the harm to affected workers and their communities. With this lawsuit, Attorney General James and the coalition are seeking a court order to stop further mass firings without notice and the reinstatement of all illegally fired federal workers who have been laid off since January 20th, 2025. Quote, federal employees are the backbone of our nation's operations, and their work is absolutely vital to the safety and well-being of every American. End quote. Congressman Dan Goldman said, there should not be, ladies and gentlemen, two sets in the end of this sentence. That's a typo. That's why I edited this in my editorial edition, of course, and said Congressman Dan Goldman said. Quote, the illegal mass firings of probationary employees is an unjust and reckless attack on the very workers who ensure our government functions. The federal workforce deserves our deepest respect, and the targeted layoffs of probationary employees will have a cascading effect, leading to a catastrophic loss of institutional knowledge that will be felt for generations. I applaud New York Attorney General James and the 16 other attorneys general for their bold and decisive action in filing this lawsuit to protect our dedicated federal workers and, by extension, the integrity of our government, end quote. Begin quote. The Trump administration, President Trump and Elon Musk have attacked our dedicated federal workforce who process benefits for seniors and veterans, protect our natural resources, keep our skies safe, and so much more. Congressman Tim Keddy said, quote, no one is above the law, and today's lawsuit will help ensure the president is held accountable for disrupting the lives of our civil servants and the hardworking families they serve in Western New York and across the country. I stand by Attorney General James as we come together to combat the Trump administration's reckless mass firings, end quote. Begin quote. Workers have rights in the United States, and it's against the law and against the interests of the American people who depend on critical services like Social Security to indiscriminately fire dedicated workers, including here in central New York and the Mohawk Valley. End quote. Congressman John W. Mannion said, quote, Trump and Musk's efforts to illegally erase a century of hard-fought workplace protections must be stopped. On behalf of every worker in New York 22 and every senior, veteran farmer, and constituent who deserves a functioning and responsive government, I wholeheartedly support this legal action by Attorney General James and her counterparts. We'll see you in court, Mr. President. End quote. Begin quote. Instead of taking real action to lower costs or keep our communities safe, the Trump administration is gutting the workforce of those who provide care for our veterans, to our veterans, retirement for our seniors, and health care to our communities, end quote. Congressman Joe Morell said, begin quote, it's shameful. I'm proud to support Attorney General James in her efforts to fight back and hold the president accountable, end quote. The Trump-Musk administration's reckless and unlawful mass firings have been nothing short of a catastrophe, not just for the dedicated workers, federal workers, if that, my editorial editions, whose livelihoods have been upended, but for the millions of New Yorkers who rely on the essential services they provide, end quote. Congressman Gerald Nadler said, quote, if left unchallenged, these firings will undermine the very programs that working families, seniors, and people with disabilities in New York depend on every day. I am grateful that New York Attorney General James and my fellow Congressional Democrats to send a clear message to our federal workers in New York. We stand with you, and we will not stop fighting until these outrageous and harmful actions are fully reversed, end quote. Joining Attorney General Letitia James, my editorial edition, in filing last Thursday's lawsuit are the Attorneys Generals of Arizona, California, Colorado, Connecticut, Delaware, Hawaii, Illinois, Maryland, Massachusetts, Michigan, Minnesota, Nevada, New Jersey, New Mexico, Oregon, Rhode Island, Vermont, Wisconsin, and the District of Columbia. Very depressing and illegal efforts by this scumbag Donald Trump and this idiot Elon Musk. Unfortunately, I know, ladies and gentlemen, how it is to be illegally fired, because I was almost attempted to be, almost attempted or excuse me, almost, not almost attempted, almost fired illegally because I have a disability, cerebral palsy, and I used to work for a fast food restaurant. And I had a manager who, knowing I had to use a walker, and I still have to use the walker because I was born with a disability, but I'm able to walk with assistance from a walker. And this manager was filing harassment claims on me because of my walker, ladies and gentlemen, which according to federal law cannot happen. They knew when I was hired that I needed to use, or that I need to use a walker in order to work and do my job. But no. So, long story short, I know how it is to almost be fired. In my case, almost be fired. I left my job because of the harassment that I was receiving. I voluntarily left. And there's some people that are going to be out there that are going to be lying and saying that I was fired. No, I wasn't fired. I voluntarily left because of the harassment that I was receiving. That is going to do it for today's legal breaking analysis video, ladies and gentlemen. If you did enjoy this legal breaking analysis video, please do consider liking, commenting, sharing, and subscribing and helping me reach the overall channel goal of 130 subscribers. A couple things before we do close out. Today's video, ladies and gentlemen. If you want to make sure you stay up to date on all the legal breaking analysis videos throughout the that I post on the channel, please consider smashing the like button down below. That does not cost anything whatsoever. That is located right next to the subscribe button on the right hand side below the screen. Next thing is, another way you guys can stay up to date is by following me on my social medias down below the screen here. That'll be linked in the video description along with the very important vital news article and news resource to this news article. That way you guys are always constantly in the know-how. Thank you so much for watching, ladies and gentlemen. Again, please help me reach the overall channel goal of 130 subscribers. Plus, the reason why I'm saying 130 subscribers plus is because right as soon as we reach the 130 subscriber goal mark. We have more subscribers to reach right after we reach and achieve the 130 subscriber goal mark. Until my next reporting, ladies and gentlemen, please stay safe and please stay positive and please stay safe.